topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good morning and welcome to another Ask the Expert show. We are live from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We are going to be talking about bankruptcy law today with one of the finest bankruptcy attorneys. He can't say that, but I can. One of the finest bankruptcy attorneys in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I love the questions that we have put together today because we're going to be talking about bankruptcy myths, and there are so many of them. Let me welcome to our show our expert in bankruptcy law, attorney David Pritchard. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Steve. Nice to see you and nice to have the opportunity to visit.
I love doing the show. I wish the topic maybe was more of an upbeat topic, but bankruptcy is, a long time ago, bankruptcy, you wanted to hide it. It was taboo. But people finally learned that bankruptcy is there to help get you restarted again. And it's not a taboo. Some of the largest companies in the world have had to file for bankruptcy. Do you agree?
I agree totally. And I tell people regularly when they come into my office, we're sitting in an office building where we've advertised for people to come in, or, we have our name on the door. We're not in some smoky bar hiding, and we're going to deal with the federal rules and regulations. And so it's just a necessary tool that some people need to use in their personal or business situations.
Well, tell people about yourself and your law firm first.
All right. I'm David Pritchard. I've been a lawyer since 1982. I've established the Pritchard Law Firm in 1989, and we represent people who have financial issues. And we've been doing it for a long time. We're in Hurst, which is centrally located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was informed here recently that I'll be next year the president of the Tarrant County Bankruptcy Bar Association. So,
wow.
I've been doing it long enough that I guess it's my turn to be president rather than some great honor. But, I'm recognized out there and I practice regularly. And I'd be glad to have people come talk to me and put their problems on my shoulders and let me figure out how to make life easier going forward.
David, you really do make people's lives easier because when you've got financial problems, you can't sleep, you can't think straight. There's so many things that go along with that. When they retain your services, you take all that off their shoulders. You talk to the creditors. They don't have to do anything.
That's correct. And Steve, what I tell them is many times the analysis we have to take is the old Ann Landers advice on getting a divorce. So you're better off getting a divorce a year from now. How will you feel? And that's what we tell them financially. Let us come in and step over. And if 6 months from now, you don't do this, where are you going to be? Almost everybody's going to be in the same miserable spot or worse off. If we get involved, we save your house, we save your car, we stop the lawsuits, we stop the people from calling. So we can provide immediate help and real help. And that results in lots better home life for many people.
David, this week, since we've been promoting your show, We've gotten a lot of questions. I just want to get one question because we got a lot of them out of the way before I get into Miss. Can you explain chapter 11, 13?
Okay. There's really three types of bankruptcies that most individuals and businesses can file. Chapter 11 is the big business reorganization. Doesn't apply to most individuals. The easiest example would be the typical fee would be $15,000 to $25,000. So it's really for the business that needs to reorganize its situation. Chapter 13 is for the individual who needs to reorganize their situation. They're behind on their car, they're behind on their house, their credit cards, hospital bills, whatever. That, for less than $1,000, you can get started to save all that stuff. Chapter 7 is the bankruptcy where, hey, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm not going to be able to work out of this. I just need to get away from this. I had a gentleman here a while back ago that got wrongfully sued in a business deal for $212,000. Well, he can't recover from $212,000. So we filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and it wipes out the debt, and he's done. He doesn't have to live with that hanging over his head anymore. So that's very helpful for people.
Which one is most popular?
We see mostly Chapter 13s because people are trying to save their house and cars. We do quite a few 7s, but the main what we see is 13s because they help us save your house and car.
Okay, I hope that answers everyone's question. Now, I'm going to throw some bankruptcy myths at you and for you to respond. The first one is bankruptcy doesn't really get rid of debt sooner or later. You still have to pay it all right back. Is that right?
That's totally incorrect. And I don't know. I think that's the creditors out there selling that story. But when you file bankruptcy and you complete your bankruptcy, you get a discharge, meaning your legal obligation to pay those debts is gone. In the very, very few cases, and I'm going to guess 5 in the last 10 years, if somebody continues to pressure you after you've been bankruptcy discharged or filed, we can go to the court and get a judgment against them for violating the bankruptcy rules. And let me tell you, the judges are not very lenient on people who violate their rules. And so that's just incorrect and something that is hanging out there but shouldn't be.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Everyone will know you have filed for bankruptcy.
Well, there is no source to go out and find out if people have filed bankruptcy unless you go to the bankruptcy courthouse and look it up, or you are a professional and you have a license to look at the court records online. Otherwise, no. In fact, it's even less popular to find out if somebody's filed bankruptcy than 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram would post a weekly list of people who filed bankruptcy. That just doesn't exist anymore. So your neighbor will never know unless you tell them that you filed bankruptcy. Nobody's coming out to your house. Nobody's putting a sign in front of your house. There's no scarlet letter they post on you. So realistically, it's only the people you share it with in your creditors.
That's amazing with, all the online crazy stuff that people can find out about you. That's amazing that it is difficult to find out if you file for bankruptcy.
It is surprising, but it is what the situation is.
Okay, let's go to myth number 3. You will lose everything you have.
At least in the state of Texas, we have very, very liberal rules that the creditors can't touch your property unless you pledge that property. You can keep your homestead. Your homestead can be unlimited. So if you live in a $700,000 house and it's free and clear, you can file bankruptcy and keep that $700,000 house. If you have a mortgage on that house, we have to pay the mortgage to keep that house. Your personal property, we're allowed to keep a couple cars, your furnishings. Very, very few people lose property that is free and clear when they file bankruptcy. If you're overwhelmed and have purchased a boat that you can't afford, you're probably going to lose that boat. But the expectation that you're going to lose property in most cases is just simply not the case.
It's one of the great laws that Texas has is the Homestead Act, where you can't lose your home, basically.
It's a great law.
How about let's go to myth number 4. You will never be able to own anything again. That's a good one.
Well, it's a correlation to what we just talked about. But what most people mean by that is that, hey, this debt's somehow going to survive and they're going to be able to come get my property later in life. And as these first two myths combined with the third myth are just simply confusion that people have. It's just not there that there's problems. People can keep the property that they buy later on. We have what I always call a line drawing. If you file bankruptcy on June 1, the court looks at what you did prior to June 1. So if in February of the next year you buy a new car, nobody cares about that because that's post bankruptcy. So you're not going to lose any assets after filing bankruptcy, and you can obtain new ones as you normally would.
Again, is it hard to get a credit card after you've gone through bankruptcy, or are you not even allowed to try to get a credit card?
Well, you can get a credit card, and what I tell most people is there's 2 ways to go about it. One is that you wait about 18 months because you need to reestablish your credit, and that's pay the bills that you normally would pay, your house, your car, your food, your insurance, all that type of stuff. And then you'll find creditors that will give you a card, but they're going to want to see a history of who you are. The second way to get a credit card is if for business you have to travel or you just need it, is you get a secured card. And that is we go to the bank, we open up a savings account for $500, and they'll give you a credit card for $500, maybe $1,000 limit, and you can just use that card just as you normally would. It's not impossible, and certainly as time goes, it will be easier because who do you want to lend money to on a secured credit card? The guy's got $50,000 worth of bills that he's overwhelmed with, or the guy that 18 months ago got rid of all those bills and in the past 18 months has paid everything because he's figured out he had a problem and solved it.
Plus, I would think with the length of time, they're not going to be able to file bankruptcy on you again. At least for what is it? Is it 10 years or 7 years? David?
Well, it is a complete 7 years. So we call it 8 years just so people aren't confused before you can file another Chapter 7. Excuse me. But if, let's say you filed bankruptcy and got a discharge in 2000 and something crazy happened, you lost your job and you were out for 6 months, we can still file a Chapter 13. Steve, it's not a complete bar. It's just you can't get a discharge of that debt. But if you were 4 months behind on your payment and all of a sudden you owe $8,000, $10,000 on your house and you can't catch it up because you were out of work for 4 months, we'd put you in a 13 and you'd catch those payments up and not lose that house. So it's not a total bar. So even after you filed bankruptcy, if you're having financial issues, you got to talk to a bankruptcy lawyer and see what remedies may still be out there.
We just got a text from a viewer, Bill in Mesquite, wants to know if you have filed personal bankruptcy, can you still file on your company bankruptcy separate?
Yes, you can. We do that fairly often. What we normally do is the reverse of that, Steve, is we'll put the business in bankruptcy because that's where the debt has been created from, with the hope that the business bankruptcy will wipe out the creditor's interest in pursuing you individually. But if it doesn't work, if you've signed a guarantee and they still want to pursue you, we can file a bankruptcy for both because they're separate entities. And so they are treated individually. And so you could file for both. It's not the ideal situation, but if you really need the fresh start and want to start a new venture or a new job without the overwhelming debt, we can do that for you.
I know we've sort of answered this, but approximately how long would it take someone to build their credit back up again?
Well, it's a combination of three things. Number one is your income. Number two would be what bills that you're going to continue to pay after filing bankruptcy. And number three, what you are interested in purchasing. So it's just like the young person, can't purchase the same type of house or car on credit that I can, because I have a long credit history and I've paid. So it's going to take a while. But if you're making $80,000 a year and you've been paying all your bills and you want to go buy a $40,000 car in 12 to 18 months, I don't see any problem with it. If you want to go out and buy a $110,000 car, I think you've got an issue. But it's what's reasonable over a period of time. But for most people, I would say 18 months is clearly as long as it should take, as long as you don't have a hiccup in there to rebuild your credit back up.
Got another text here, Shirley from Garland. This must be your cousins doing this. What a great show! What a great show topic today. They have to be relatives of yours, David. But she wants to know if bankruptcy is federal, and you're listening to the show today, and you're in Oklahoma. Are the laws the same?
The laws regarding bankruptcy are going to be the same since it's federal. Where the interaction comes in is that regarding the exempt property. In most states, you can elect to claim either the federal exemptions, that's the property you get to keep, or the state exemptions. And so Oklahoma's exemptions would not be as liberal as Texas exemptions, but everything went away.
Well, let's go back to the myths. This is myth number 6. Filing bankruptcy, I could answer this one, means you're a bad person.
That's totally untrue, Steve. And I have a list that I have kept over the years of people who have filed bankruptcy. Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey?
Dave Ramsey. He's a reformed person.
Okay.
Henry Ford, one of my favorite, Johnny Unitas. There's just many people who over the years, and Steve, you'll relate to this one, Larry King filed bankruptcy.
Wow.
And so now I don't know if those are good people or not, but what I say is that it's simply, bad things happen to good people, and bankruptcy is just one of the options to solve that problem. And so, no, there's no way that makes you a bad person. If you have illness in your family, that doesn't make you a bad person. You just have the bad luck of somebody has illness in your family.
And David, with the pandemic and a lot of businesses being shut down, again, that doesn't make you a bad person.
No, many people, it's been out of their control. I have many friends who their whole business shut down. What can they do? I played golf this weekend with a young man, nice guy. I guess I'm related to him somehow. He's the brother of my wife's or my daughter's husband. So we're related. Anyway, he was working for a title company in Dallas. And one day, everybody got let go. And, he can't do anything about that. And 6 weeks from now, he's getting married. So, the timing couldn't be worse for a guy like that. That doesn't make him a bad person. That makes him somebody who had bad luck.
Well, this is not trying to get political at all. I just wanted to kind of give an example. President Trump filed bankruptcy on his businesses.
Yes, sir.
And people try to make it like, he's a bad business person. He filed bankruptcy, but there was a lot of problems with those casinos on the East Coast from storms. But it didn't make him a bad person because he filed bankruptcy on those companies.
Yeah. What we try to tell people is you're not a bad person, and we're using the bankruptcy code. Guess who else made the bankruptcy code? The same people who made the IRS code. Now, I feel differently about those people when I think about them, but we're just using a tool that the United States government has given its citizens to say, hey, your problem's bigger than you can handle. So we're giving you what we call the bankruptcy fresh start. It's not going to be wonderful run and start, but it's going to get all that stuff behind you. So in the future, as things go better for you, you're not drugged down by all the problems from the past.
When you file bankruptcy, David, when you have a tax lien, can you wipe that out?
Well, I want to talk precise about that. All right. The answer is that if there is a tax obligation and you filed your tax returns like you're supposed to and just can't pay, then if you file bankruptcy, we're going to have to pay back the tax, but we don't have to pay back the penalty and interest. All right. And we do that through a Chapter 13. So we take that $20,000 tax debt, put you in a 13, and since we're not paying all the debt back, normally that tax debt is about $10,000, and we then would spread that out over 60 months. The other unsecured debt in almost all cases doesn't get paid. Now, your question, what, Steve, was a tax lien. A tax lien attaches to a particular piece of property. If you have equity in that property, you may have to pay the full amount. But let's say the lien attaches to your homestead and you owe $190,000 and your homestead is worth $10,000. Well, you'd only have to pay, or not $10,000, $200,000. And you'd only have to pay the $10,000 back, not the total $20,000 in my example. So we can do things with taxes, but the most thing that helps you is it stops that tax penalty and interest from continuing to run and puts us in control of the situation.
Okay, myth number 8. If you're married, both you and your spouse have to file for bankruptcy.
Totally untrue, especially in situations where maybe your spouse has brought debt into the marriage. I have a case right now where a young couple, the husband has about $40,000 worth of credit card debt that they just can't handle. Well, we're just going to put the husband in bankruptcy because the wife didn't have any obligation of that $40,000. Now, there may be circumstances where we choose to put both of them in there, but they're not required as long as they understand. In this case, the wife had about $5,000 of credit card debt, and I thought that it made sense to put both of them in there and wipe out all $45,000. Their choice was, no, only the husband will file and we'll keep the $5,000 in debt and the available credit with those credit cards. That was their personal business decision. So it's still their decision, and we'll recommend which way we want to go. And in my example, then they can make their own personal business decision of what makes best sense for them as a married couple.
Here's myth number 9. Really hard to file for bankruptcy.
Well, my example of this is what I tell people all the time. The simple is hard until you know how to do it. And as a lawyer, I know how to do it. So it's simple for me. But were you, Steve, to take the 50 pages that you have to file with the court and fill them out, I'm going to tell you they're going to get rejected 4 and 5 and 6 times, and you're going to have trouble. The same as if you have a tax return that's other than just W-2 income. You need to get some advice on somebody to help you with how you're going to deal with this rent house you have, or how you're going to deal with this car expense or whatever. For the individuals, it's hard. You come to my office at the Pritchard Law Firm, you're going to visit with me in person. I'm going to explain to you your options. And then once you've determined that, I'm going to give you a packet of information. I tell people that packet of information should take about an hour to fill out. Now, if you don't have any idea where any of your information is, you got to gather your information before my hour starts to run. All right. But if you then look at that and say, it's still too hard for me, David, you can come to my office And I have a lawyer in my office who part of his job is to help you go through that packet and complete it properly. So we make the hard easy for you, and we want to help you because what we don't want to do is end up at the courthouse and some question comes up and we're looking at each other and you're going, what am I supposed to say? I don't know the answer. Well, why are you looking at me not knowing what to say? Because you're not prepared. Well, if we've gone through the paperwork and helped you fill it out, you'll be prepared. So when they ask you about, do you have a second piece of real estate? We've already visited on that, and you'll know there's no second piece of real estate. So yes, to the uninitiated, the same as going to fix my car engine is impossibly hard for me. That's why I take it to the mechanic. Filing bankruptcy is not hard if you know what you're doing. And at my law firm, we know what we're doing.
I got to tell you, I had a friend of mine who thought he could save money by doing one of those online services. He said it was a nightmare because one of the things is you still have to talk to these people. Whereas if they retain your services, David, you don't have to talk to creditors again. You handle that for them. But he said to save money, he should have definitely hired an attorney. And I had to throw that in.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, one of the unsung advantages is they got to come through me to come to you, and I'm not opening that door.
Right.
So you're not going to
give
deal with those
them
creditors.
You can give them, not knowing, give them information that's going to help them, you not knowing it. Whereas you, the attorney, know what to answer, how to answer it.
Well, and the other advantage, Steve, that people don't think about is, and this is important, if there's negotiations involved, let's say we have a car and we want to negotiate. If I ask you right now, will you pay me $700? Well, you got to answer that question. If the question is to me, David, will your client pay $700? My response will be, well, I have to go confer with my client. And we hang up the phone and I really get to confer with my client. So the client's not under the pressure that you are under right now. Can I make $700? They can talk to me and determine, well, is $700 a fair amount I can pay and I can keep my car going forward? Or yes, I can pay $700, but I got to pay $350 on the 1st of June and $350 on the 19th of June to get that $700. That you're not getting that advantage of if you don't have a go-between. And the lawyer is your go-between. And besides helping you make that decision, I'll then turn around and tell them. And so if you tell me, no, all I can pay is $400, you don't have to worry about that. I don't have any problem with calling them back up and saying, John can only pay $400. And that's the way it works. So there's some real important values that people don't think about that will save them money, that, will make hiring a lawyer much cheaper than handling it yourself.
Well, I got to tell you, first of all, this show goes by so fast, David. It's such an interesting topic, and I hope that people have learned a lot about the myths of bankruptcy today. David's with us every month. The name of the firm is the Pritchard Law Firm, 817-285-8017. We've been running that on the TV end of it. These are for the people, for the podcast and for the radio, the Pritchard Law Firm, 817-285-8017. David, do you have a website?
Yes, it's dlplegal.com. Very simple. It's just my initials with the word legal, dlplegal.com. You can get further information on how to contact us there, and we'll answer your questions and help you get down the road.
Well, David, thank you so much, and we'll see you again next month.
All right. Thank you, Steve. You have a nice week.
You're welcome. You too. That is attorney David Pritchard. He's a bankruptcy attorney in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. As you can tell, he knows bankruptcy law. We hope you'll give him a call at 817-285-8017. And that will do it for us today with the Ask the Expert show. We'll be back with you next Wednesday at 9 a.m. your time. and everybody have a wonderful week, and we can see you soon.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.